Good evening and welcome to another episode of Nigeria Politics Weekly. As usual, I'm Michael and co-hosting with me is Phoenix. Today we have two guests. Our first guest is Samuel. Samuel is a consultant with the International Budget Partnership. Our second guest is Omasa. Omasa works within the tech space. So we have to call Omasa a tech person. Is that what they call you guys these days? But anyway, the three topics we're discussing. Firstly, Charles Soludo was declared winner of the elections in Anambra. So all things being equal, he will be the next governor of Anambra State. So we'll discuss that first. Secondly, we'll discuss the recent freezing of bank accounts of Nigerians who have been suspected of trading in cryptocurrency. The banks allege that they were given an instruction by the central bank that anybody who is suspected of trading in cryptocurrencies accounts should be frozen. And then thirdly, we'll discuss the death of Brigadier General Kennedy Zirkushu on the battlefront. He and his team were apparently ambushed by the terrorists in the northeast of Nigeria, and sadly he and about three of his colleagues lost their lives. So we'll discuss what that means for Nigeria's security infrastructure. So firstly, to Phoenix, Charles Soludo has been declared winner. What do you think this victory portends for the people of Anambra State, Phoenix?
Hi, Michael, and hello, listeners. Thanks, Omasa and Samuel, for joining us today. When you looked at the field, for any, how would I put it, neutral observer, it would have seemed like the front runner was Charles Soludo. And, one other thing that struck me, I read a tweet on, I think during the week or something, where it was by, I hope I have his name right, Ambrosia Ijebu. He said something that was on my mind. It was just a function of saying this Soludo election is, it puts to test what a lot of us always say, that, look, let's put the best people forward, let's put technocrats forward and all of that, and put that to the test to see if they actually turn out to be better than the run-of-the-mill politicians that we get. Last week I talked about the fact that he was the one I would put my money on if and I think by then it was already obvious that he was leading in a number of places for obvious reasons. Of course, he was the ABGA candidate, and we know the stronghold that ABGA has on the governorship in Anambra. And his name recognition, his past, obviously spoke for him versus the field. I think the issue for me, which I mentioned last week and I'll reiterate now, is his evolution from that respected economist who did good things during his tenure as the CBN governor, and had a big hand in the way the economy grew and some of the ways he brought banking into the future, and set the tone and laid the foundation for a lot of good. But then, post that CBN governorship, and obviously he should have, I believe strongly, he should have gotten a second term. But post that period, you've seen him then become a politician, vying for the same governorship a number of times, not being successful. You've also seen him, begin to behave like typical Nigerian politicians, jumping from one party to another, taking certain positions that you would not expect him to take, and getting in bed with his current government, which I would have expected him not to touch with a 10-foot pole. So for me, when you ask what does this portend for for the state of Anambra and its people. I'm hoping that it's Soludo 1.0 that they get. I think it is likely to be, because he seems to have been chastened by his failures and truly wanted to earn this. I hope that's the one they get, and not the 2.0. I hope if they do get that one, that technocrat, that bright mind, that person who had very strong understanding of what it took to build an economy and, you know, do all of that. If we get that, then it could be a very good time and a return to at least the positive trajectory that they had under Peter Obi before they had this bump in the road with Willie Obiano. So I'm hoping that's what they get, and that it then, for the wider society, for Nigeria at large, it reinforces that point that we've always made, that look, if you put the right people in power, that our states can do well, our country as a whole will do well, and that we need to always put our best feet forward. So for me, I mean, that's how I would look at it. I just hope that he truly means well for his people, and that he will do what's what. And the good thing is that the party he's in should enable him to do that. I mean, it's not a party of godfathers or a party that has national recognition, such that he will be under pressure to please some people. So let's hope he puts that to good use and brings good to the state.
Thank you, Phoenix, for setting out the background. I'll first go to Samuel, because Samuel, I know your specialism is economics and development. As Phoenix has said, Soludo seems to possess the intellectual and capacity, and also the executive capacity, to be able to perform in Anambra State. And I watched one of his interviews today with Arise TV, and he did strike me as someone who understands the issues and who seems to be able to, who seems to be the kind that can deliver. But in your view, do you think there will be any obstacles to his progress? Samuel, do you think the Nigerian state, because obviously he has to operate within the current constitution, do you think the current Nigerian constitution gives him the latitude to deliver the kind of development he thinks he can deliver? Samuel?
Yeah, I think it's, how will I say, complex when it comes to becoming a governor versus when you are leading or when you are being guided to take certain decisions or not to take a decision. And a classical example is El-Rufai in Kaduna. And when El-Rufai was FCT chairman, I mean, what would I call it now? The minister for the FCT. He did some fantastic work. Of course, again, he did some fantastic work in the FCT, no matter how people want to paint it. But again, what is exhibiting today in Kaduna, it's clear for everybody to see. Those elements were very, very open. I mean, it was obvious to everybody when he was even FCT chairman, destroying people's houses without recourse to court and all those kind of things. Now, in the case of Soludo, I think why I'm excited is the fact that since 1999, we've not necessarily seen a person of his kind actually be given the authority, I mean, has the constitutional authority to actually govern a state. The last 7 years, I've been researching about subnational governance. And sorry, please, I'm a little bit taken aback. If you go back to when Soludo got into government in 2003, I was relatively very young then, I think in his 40s or early 30s or 40s, or early 40s or late 30s. He came up with the NEET document before he became the central bank governor. He came up with the NEET document, which is the National Economic Empowerment Development Plan. I can't even remember the acronym now. And then also the SEED document. The SEED is for the states. Now, if you read the fine lines of the seed document, it was where the whole context of fiscal governance, things like fiscal transparency, accountability, and all those things stems from. As at 2010 in Nigeria, only 5 states was actually, they published their budgets. That's how bad things are. But if you go back to 2003, when it was normal for states to be run from your back pocket, in that document, which was produced by Soludo, it was highlighting the need to actually set up structures and systems in place to ensure that you have effective budgeting system, have a good planning system, and all those kind of things. And so now, of course, he went ahead to create the FSS document that metamorphosed into what people now talk about, the banking reforms. And then I think where he actually hit the nail was when he came up with the strategic agenda for the Naira. And then he announced to the whole world in 2007. And that was why he never got a third time, he never got a second time. And that's the end of his reform initiative. And that set Nigeria back. But now, to your question, Michael, you're asking if he will perform. The truth is that you can have the best of intention, but as long as there are no systems and processes to put you under check and balance, you tend to move away from that space. So one big fear I have is that Soludo is fantastic on paper, but the truth is that, do we have intellectual, I mean, when you see civil society challenging government, it's easy for you to go to the room and talk about, oh, you did not construct road for us. Those are minimalistic discussion, tokenism. When you're discussing with Soludo, you can't go into a conversation with him and begin to talk about, oh, the road is not well done and all those kind of things. You need to begin to make strong economic arguments in favor of a particular program that will benefit your people vis-a-vis what is thinking. So my biggest fear is that I don't think the Nigerian state, and when I say the Nigerian state, I'm meaning the body of media. I'm talking about the media people. I'm talking about civil society. I'm talking about people around people. I mean, general people around government. I don't think they have the intellectual rigor to begin to challenge people like that. And when that happens, the truth is that they always find their way into the bad roads. Hitler was an intellectual, but because he was not challenged, he entered into the road of no return. So for the first time in Nigeria, why I'm excited that Soludo had finally, maybe some of the fine writing he wrote in the 2000s, right, in the early 2000s, when the democracy was still nascent in Nigeria, that the thinking was not in that perspective. There's no World Bank to guide and use money to force you to take actions. He was writing that, I mean, coming up with such a plan as at that time. He can implement some of those plans now, fantastic. But notwithstanding that, I'm curious to know whether we have enough check and balance to put him on the right trajectory. I think that's just where the problem lies. Generally, if he fails, of course, it means that the entire intellectual community will struggle to convince the Nigerian populace that this is the path to go. But the truth is that for a country like Nigeria, we can't continue to have people like the present president running the country. We need people that are intellectual, that are thorough, that will put their arguments on the table vehemently and argue it out. We need intellectuals to actually drive this country through this quagmire that we find ourselves. We need intellectuals to upend the circle of poverty. And Soludo presents a very good case study for us to study. So that's why I'm excited. I hope it works. I hope things work out. In 2 years' time, we'll come back and have this conversation.
Thank you, Samuel. I think you are right, because I do remember he was the one that designed the needs and the seeds documents for the Obasanjo administration. So the test, as you've said, is whether or not he will deliver. Now to Omasa, I know your half of you is from the Southeast. So from speaking to your relatives and friends in the region, what are they excited? Is there an air of excitement in the Southeast, or do people just think, well, this is another round of promises and we expect to be heartbroken? So what is the feeling, Amasa?
Well, to be fair, I did talk to people and friends, both in the southeast, some in the who are in the diaspora. The main thing I think people are relieved about is that the APC candidates and Mr. Andiba did not get into power. I think it's more of a sigh of relief, and they still fear that the Supreme Court might do the magic of making him the governor. So people are a bit skeptical, but people are also a bit optimistic because they think that he, if given a chance, which he has now, could be a transformational governor if things go well. In that case, and if he lives up to his billing and does well, people believe that he could be a transformational governor that helps take the state to the next level. Because Anambra State, under Peter Obi and to a certain extent under Willie Obiano, have been some of the most competent governments in the southeast. So there's hope, but there's also a bit of fear that what happened in Imo can happen again. That's the general feeling I get.
Thank you, Omasa. Let me first of all go to Phoenix because we have about 3 minutes left on this topic. So Phoenix, in 1 minute, is there one thing, I don't know if you've been able to read Soludo's manifesto, because I did some Googling, I tried everywhere, I couldn't find his manifesto, but is there one thing that you think Soludo can do or should do that will play the game changer in terms of developing the state? Phoenix.
Michael, I missed part of the question. You said something about game changer. Can you just repeat it?
Oh, sorry. I said, is there one thing that Soludo can or should do in terms of policy that you think will be the game changer or the transformational policy in terms of developing Anambra?
Wow. The challenge I have is not having, I don't have that much information on what the state of Anambra is, but let me say this. Of course, I mean, knowing the Southeast and some of the challenges that there are, given transportation infrastructure and things like that hamper businessmen. The challenge I have is some of the things that will be required are things that he cannot necessarily do on his own. But that's not to give him a pass, right? I think what will be important will be for him to come in and then create opportunities to bring investments into his state, in the sense that how do you create employment for people? How do you sort out areas where you have a say on? I think there are opportunities that they can bring. For instance, I mean, he can decide. I mean, with all the tech revolution that is going on in Nigeria right now, he can decide to really open that up and create opportunities, create business parks, do things that bring those kind of investments, those kind of things to, like, incubators to Anambra State, and then make that, like, you know, the tech central or even the fintech center of Nigeria, given his antecedents as the central bank governor. I think he needs to be imaginative and rethink how things operate and look at it across a number of places. Anambra has always had a strong reputation for education. He can build on that and you know, use that to create a large pool of sound, well-educated young people who then feed the knowledge industry that is taking Nigeria by storm, and use that to you know, uplift the economic well-being of people across the state. But it cannot be business as usual. And he also has to be smart enough to find areas where he won't be hampered by the Nigerian state, like you said. A lot of the challenges that they have will still be around infrastructure. We know the challenges with the constitution as it is today, and being able to do things. We know the challenges, for instance, with the second Niger bridge and all that funny stuff. He would need to also be politically savvy to get those things that are required to enable his people where he needs others to participate. But I think, given Anambra's antecedents with education, given his background as CBN governor and knowledge of the financial space, he could really create a new ecosystem in Anambra State that really changes the course of things. I believe so.
Thank you, Phoenix. Samuel, we have 1 minute, so I want you to answer this question in 1 minute. The elephant in the room, as Massa has alluded to, and I think Phoenix has also mentioned, is the politics. So we've seen the results. Soludo got 112,000. The PDP came second with 53,000, and Andy Uba of the APC came third with 43,000. All the others have congratulated Soludo, except for Andy Uba, who came third with 43,000 votes, and he said he's heading to the Supreme Court. So in 1 minute, do you think that Soludo has enough leverage with Buhari to guarantee that he's secure, or do you think we're going to have another round of what happened in Imo State where we got a Supreme Court governor? Samuel.
Thank you. I don't think what happened in Imo can actually happen in Nigeria. I think it happened because people were not paying too many attention. People were, it's one of the biggest jokes that has happened in the history of the country. And that tarnished, of course, the image of the Supreme Court. I'm not sure the people on the bench will allow that kind of thing to reoccur itself. Again, aside from, recall all this unknown government and all those kind of things actually started because, I won't say directly connected, but they started emanating after that incident. And so I don't think that will happen. I think the second key thing to also notice is that this election is wide different compared to the Imo election, in the sense that if you look at the total number of cancelled votes, it's not material enough to upturn the election in favor of another candidate except for Soludo himself. In the case of Imo, what they leveraged on was cancelled vote, and then the other party claimed that, oh, he won everything or something like that. They came up with these big grammars and mathematics, and then the Supreme Court elected the governor of the people, truncating the whole context of democracy. Democracy tells us that government should come from the people. Essentially, it's the people that should elect, not some people that sit on the bench of the Supreme Court that are appointed by privilege of the president and now make choices for the people of Imo State. I don't think that will happen. I don't think even the Supreme Court, I'm not sure they will want that to happen again. So I think I'm confident that this is a no case itself moving forward. Except something happened in party where Soludo himself is removed as, in quotes, is not the candidate of APGA. As such, another candidate comes out of APGA. And that could happen, but again, that's complex.
Thank you, Samuel. Well, time will tell. Fingers crossed. Let's hope the democratic will of the people prevails. But this is Nigeria. Anything can happen, as we know. On to our next topic. The Central Bank of Nigeria has ordered all Nigerian commercial banks to freeze the accounts of individuals who are allegedly trading in cryptocurrency. Phoenix, because truth be told, even I don't understand the whole cryptocurrency issue, but can you talk us through why is the central bank suddenly hell-bent on shutting down ordinary Nigerians' access to cryptos like Bitcoin and the others? What is the motivation behind it, Phoenix?
So, Emefiele has been on this warpath with crypto for 4 years now. It started out in 2017 when when he very clearly sounded a note of warning to deposit money banks and the financial sector, regulated by the CBN, that they should not dabble into this. They should not get involved. He said those who are trading in crypto, talking to the public at large, need to understand that they carry the risk on their own, as this is not regulated by government. So it's not sudden. He's been talking about this. And then, of course, in February of this year, the central bank issued a circular telling all the banks that they must not only desist, but they must close accounts of anyone found trading in cryptocurrency or being involved in cryptocurrency. So they did that in February this year. Of course, we all remember what happened during the NSARS and how they were closing or suspending people's accounts and all of that. In recent times, just before what happened a week ago, in recent times, we also know that they went after some fintechs and blocked their accounts. Talking about RiseVest, Bamboo, Chaka, and I can't remember the fourth one, all on this crypto wahala. And I mean, the matter is in court at the moment. In fact, there was an order by the judge saying that vacating the interim order that the CBN had gotten to block their account, saying that there's nothing in law that supports what the CBN is trying to do, and that a CBN circular is not law, is not based on law, and therefore cannot take effect. So that's an interesting judgment, and we need to see what happens in light of what's going on. But to your question about why, for me, I've always looked at it as an FX play, because anyone who's looked at Godwin Emefiele's tenure in office, you find two recurring themes. One is clearly all about the Naira and its exchange rate. That's been, the number one thing that has been top of mind for him, and is seen as his number one mandate, how to protect the exchange rate of the Naira. The other is, of course, trying to be not only CBN governor, but also finance minister, and, underwriting the government and doing interventions here and there that are failing willy-nilly. But if we focus on his supposed exchange rate mandate, you understand that, if you were in his shoes and were thinking the same way, you would do the same thing. Cryptocurrency, the proliferation of crypto in Nigeria very clearly puts, whatever policies he's trying to do around the Naira and to control the exchange rate at risk, because people have seen crypto as a way out to protect their savings and their earnings, and it's being traded using the parallel rate. So as long as that exchange is happening, Naira to crypto, it is defining a parallel exchange rate to that which Godwin Emefiele deems as the right one for the Naira. And to that extent, he's not going to let that happen. It's the same thing that we're seeing him going after BTCs, Aboki FX, and all that. So from 2017, he had always identified that as a challenge, that it was a market he couldn't control. It was a market that, that would very clearly, set exchange rate benchmark for the Naira, which he would not be able to control. And so he had sought to bring that, he had sought to totally shut it down. Of course, he hasn't been successful, because the real nature of crypto is that, it's outside of any government or state control, and therefore people find means and ways to trade, whether through exchanges or through some of this fintechs that we're talking about, or peer-to-peer, which is becoming the prevalent mode now. So you can see that his push in 2021, having been talking about it since 2017, is push now because he's really seen it take hold in Nigeria, and he feels he has to do something drastic to stop it. But the question then becomes, how long will he be allowed to continue to flout the rule of law? We have a judgment from a court that clearly says that he has no right to be closing people's accounts on the basis of them trading in crypto. And we're now seeing him sending circulars to banks to shut down the accounts of two specific individuals and one company. So we wait to see whether those push back using this judgment as part of their story to go to court, and we see how this evolves.
Thank you, Phoenix. Let me bring in Samuel. Some of those, the point Phoenix has raised is the fact that the courts have already told the central bank and Nigerian commercial banks as well, their court judgments telling them that you cannot freeze the accounts of citizens without an order from us. So the question is, in the banking system, there should be legal departments that advise the banks on the legality of the decisions they are taking. There should also be a legal department in the CBN that advises the governor on the legality of the instructions he is issuing. So what is happening, Samuel? Why are these apparently illegal instructions still coming from the CBN and being obeyed by banks when they're supposed to have legal departments that tell them that you cannot do this?
Yeah, I think the central bank do have a legal department, certainly, and virtually all banks in Nigeria have legal departments. But the truth is that they are all subjected, especially for the central bank, they are subjected to the Attorney General's of the Federation's advice. So when you see an institution of government misbehaving, it stems directly from the Attorney General of the Federation that allegedly even went ahead to sign and then employ a fake police officer to harass judges. That's how terrible things can be. But that said, to dive deep into this crypto issue, I think it's a battle of survival. If you've been following the crypto, I call it the crypto economy itself that's just emerging. If you look closely at the Naira, Naira is actually useful in 3 dimensions. 1, to store value, 2, to exchange for transactional purpose, and then the final one as a unit of account, just for doing budgeting and all those kind of things. Yeah, unit of accounting makes a whole lot of sense. You can calibrate your account in Naira, or you can even calibrate it in dollar. Who cares? Nobody cares about that. The downline is what's material. In terms of the store value, Emefiele are damaged, and I won't say Emefiele also, I can even blame the former central bank governor himself, Sanusi. They've damaged the Nigerian financial system to the point whereby the Naira is no longer a store of value. If you're saving your money in Naira, you're just pouring water in a, how will I call it, in a basket, and hoping that the basket will one day hold it. The truth is that the systems and the microeconomic the entire microeconomic policies that we've seen in the last, I'll call it the last 8 years, are abysmal by all measures. If we take one step forward and say, okay, for means of exchange, what is material? Now, if you look closely, aside from the Bitcoin and all those kind of things that people are getting used to now, one of the biggest thing that is about to eat the market is this Facebook Libra, the Dime Association, that Facebook is trying to create its own cryptocurrency. I will not understand that most young people in Nigeria, essentially, the gig economy, even the civil society, everybody, most young people in Nigeria do their business primarily online. Even if you are doing physical transactions, most of the time you're doing transfers and all those things. Now, just imagine if Facebook launching a currency in the country and the implication on the Naira. So what they've been doing in the last 4 years, rather than actually strengthening the fundamentals of the Naira, they have decided to criminalize you from touching or indulging in those kind of transactions. And it's just basic. I mean, it's basic for everybody to see. So if you're seen as buying Bitcoin, you are automatically a criminal in Nigeria. That's abysmal. Even the court admitted in series of judgment that that's strange. I mean, the central bank governor cannot come to my house and knock my house and tell me not to buy things. It's my money, and that's why we enjoy freedom in the country. So when the central bank governor decides to tell you what to buy and what not to buy, then that ceases to become a democracy. You cannot decide what people should buy. What is the intrinsic value of gold? Why do people buy gold? So if I buy gold and I decide to paint my house with gold, is it your problem? Is that my problem? As long as I'm not committing crime to do that. So if people elect to buy Bitcoin or one of those cryptocurrencies as a digital asset, they are within their own confines, as long as the money that they are using to buy that thing is not a proceed of crime. And demonstratively, the central bank has shown, of course, colluding with, I'll call him the failed Attorney General of the Federation. I said Attorney General of the Federation, I repeat it again, the failed Attorney General of the Federation that had decided to harass the court and then tear open the court, break down walls and do all those kind of things. They've decided to collude together to begin to suppress, of course, the freedom of people to buy what they want to buy at their will. And so what is happening is actually largely illegal. It is illegal. It is something that cannot stand the test of time. The truth is that next year, these people will start packing their loads and they will leave the system, and then we'll see what happens subsequently after that time. But the truth, and then people should continue to say that what they are doing is actually outrightly illegal. It is wrong, and it cannot last because it cannot stand the test of time. I think let me pause here.
Thank you, Samuel. An interesting thing I discovered whilst researching this story is when Attorney General Malami posted a screenshot of his phone to prove that he had deactivated his Twitter account. One of the things that was obvious from his phone is that he had downloaded a cryptocurrency trading app. So it was surprising to Nigerians to find that the Attorney General actually trades in cryptocurrency, whilst at the same time tells CBN it's okay to ban other people from trading in crypto. But I suppose it's in tandem, or it's not out of character of this government to do a thing like this. But my final question on this topic is to Omasa. Omasa, I know you're relatively young and you're in tech. Now, with the amount of what I would say attacks that the government is launching against your community, on the one hand, they're banning crypto, on the other hand, they've banned Twitter, and then you have the police force harassing people who are walking around with laptops. Is tech, do you think the tech career is still worthwhile for Nigerians who live in Nigeria? Is it still a worthwhile career?
Well, I think it is, because basically it's still one of the few sectors in the Nigerian economy that's actually growing, getting funding, and becoming bigger. So at this point, it is still worth it. The main question people should be asking is, why is the government going after a sector of economy that is actually growing and creating jobs in a time of mass unemployment at very low growth? That's the main question people should ask, because this makes no sense whatsoever. Because it seems like by waging war on the tech community, the Nigerian government seems to be like trying to wage a war on its youth, and it's in the long run, it's not sustainable. Someone's mentioned unknown gunmen already, and we have crisis in the north. We have crisis in the north with the bandits. We have crisis in the south because of militants. So in every area of Nigeria, like because of unemployment and lack of opportunities, people are taking up crime or doing drugs and other such things. So it makes no sense why the government is attacking tech, because it is clearly counterproductive. Attacking crypto simply drives the market on the ground, because people, before crypto became more of a bigger trend than it was. People were really trading it in WhatsApp groups, in their little circles, and online over Facebook and stuff. The government cannot look into everybody's private messages to find out if they're trading crypto or not. So it is clearly stupid and eventually will have to be reversed. But the problem is all of this is unnecessary in the first place. So I think tech is always going to be a worthwhile sector for young Nigerians to get in. As it's well-paying, it is interesting, and there's innovation happening there. But the government's way of dealing with things is inexplicable because of the fact that we have an unemployment crisis, one of the worst in the world. So attacking sectors that grow makes no sense whatsoever.
Thank you, Omasa. I quite agree that the tech sector is lucrative for young people. It's kind of a democratic space. If you have talent, you can thrive. So the Nigerian government should be doing all it can to encourage our young people to pursue careers in that sector as opposed to building roadblocks in their way. But our final topic is the sad death of the commander of the 28th Task Force Brigade in Chibok, Brigadier General Kennedy Zerkushu, who was ambushed by terrorists. Some say it's ISWAP, others say it was Boko Haram, was ambushed alongside 3 of his men in an attack yesterday. Phoenix, we've been told for years, in fact, within 6 months of Buhari's presidency, he told us Boko Haram had been defeated. Yet, almost over 6 years after, a general is being killed on the battlefront. So what is going on? Are we winning this war, or are we losing, or is there a stalemate, Phoenix?
To start first by, praying for repose of their souls. We lost this brigadier general, and I believe there were 3 other men, army officers who died. Well, let me just say, I don't know if they were officers, but let's just say army personnel who also died as well. So I pray that their souls find peace, and their sacrifice is well appreciated. All of this casualties we've suffered with these men leaving their families, their homes behind to prosecute this war. Just want to send out my well wishes to men of the Nigerian armed forces for the sacrifices they continue to, undertake in the field of, in the theater of battle, especially in the Northeast. To your question, when you're asking that question, the image that flashed across my mind was that photo in November, or was it December 2015, when the former army chief, Buratai, was presenting what was supposedly a Boko Haram flag to Buhari to sort of like symbolize that they had defeated the enemy and taken their flag. And that was when we first heard the terminology technically defeated. And we're here 6 years later, and it's clear that they're not technically defeated. From what I've heard, it even seems like there's, of course, there are 2 factions, I believe, but this ISWAP faction that is said to have done this attack is said to have gained in capability and remains a virile threat to the nation. Continuing their attacks in the Northeast, and it just shows that could we win the war? To be fair, there are times when you look at that and you say, even the US has, they retreated from Afghanistan. No one would ever say they won that war. They lost in Vietnam as well. But there were extenuating circumstances for some of those retreats that happened. Number one, they were fighting in enemy terrain, and so that makes it difficult. the challenge that I have with this is you came in on the back of, oh, this was a general, he understands security, he's done this before, he will be able to, wipe out these guys. And we've gone 6 years with losses. I mean, continuing to come across with ambushes, with them attacking military installations, with them setting up. I mean, recently I heard they've set up such that they are collecting taxes. I remember the hilarious minister for disinformation that was saying that because they are collecting taxes doesn't mean that they are in control. So we hear about equipment being bought, aircrafts being bought, Super Tucano this one, that. But to me, the issue seems to be more around that of intellectual capability in terms of what's their strategy for winning the war. How are they prosecuting it to the extent that they're able to, end this once and for all? You hear that, this leader has been killed, and that leader of whether it be Boko Haram or the ISWAP or whatever has been killed. But still, it seems like regardless of whoever you kill, that you say is their top commander, they continue to gain in strength and continue to carry out attacks. So what is the plan from the Nigerian side? What the Nigerian military establishment, what is their plan for bringing an end to this? Or is there a plan not to bring an end to this for some reason? Because I do not understand why it's been, despite the amount of resources that have been pushed into prosecuting this war, why are we still here 10 years in? What's so difficult, particularly for this government that claimed victory so early on in 2015, to still be here in 2016, where we're losing our soldiers, and especially a very high-ranking commander, a general, for that matter, in the battlefield. So for me, we clearly are not winning. It doesn't look like we're any closer to winning than we were in 2015. And it just, it just shows the waste of life and resources that have happened. And for me, I pin it to the fact that there's no clear-cut strategy for winning the war. There's no, whether they decide go all out offensive or let's do something else. It just seems like the wishy-washy manner they've handled it is what has led this thing. It will ebb for a while, and then all of a sudden you just see this ISWAP or Boko Haram people come back again and doing attacks, and it's just been poor. It's been poor. It's been irresponsible to have allowed this go on for so long.
Thank you, Phoenix. Samuel, Phoenix has told us that, look, this war's gone on for too long. We've been told many times by government information or disinformation that we're winning, but the facts on the ground seem to contradict their statements. Now, my question, Samuel, what does this war keep Buhari up at night? Is he seriously racking his brain thinking, how can we defeat these terrorists, or does it not bother him? Samuel.
Very difficult question. But if you look at the press release issued by the Nigerian Army on the 13th of November, they said in that release that troops, of course, forgetting the typos, but I'll just read out, I'll try to paraphrase. But what they are saying is that the troops, the Nigerian Army destroyed 5 A-jets, 2 A-29, 2 Dragon combat vehicles, and 9 gun trucks. If you're conversant with military equipment, A-jets and A-29s are actually aircrafts. The question is that ISWAP, they've acquired what you call what you call air process, right? They can now fly jet bomber into the country. So if you're the president of the country, will you be sleeping? Will you be flying from, where was that? Going from this place to South Africa, rather than actually calling for an emergency this thing. I think I'll just end it there. This is a scary situation. I think people are just, because it's Buhari, and then people, it's our time and all those kind of things. The situation is getting worse by the day. And unfortunately, I think we seem to be treating this thing with kid gloves. The National Assembly, they've decided to go to bed and sleep off while the country burned. A situation whereby these people can be so bold and they've even acquired even more capacity to create more destruction, tells us a lot about the state of our country. And that's the argument that we've made. The truth is that the federal government, with their meager funds that they are making, that they think they are making a whole lot of money because they control the police, they control the army. The total revenue of the federal government is about 4 trillion. How can you police a country of over 200 million? That's assuming the statistics is correct. Police every community, police every state, police every region, police everybody, still create events and achieve success. It's not possible. With 4 trillion naira revenue, on the back of a 4 trillion naira revenue that will be stolen, that half of it will be spent, will be stolen, and all those kind of things. So how do we get out of this quagmire? I think that's the biggest question. And that's the argument that we've made, that the federal government needs to begin to devour its powers to the state. But the biggest fear is that, how do I give a Tinubu police force? That's where the problem lies. So what systems and what process can we put on ground to ensure that politicians will hijack the security systems, of course, to their own private agenda? So the argument now is about the country's survival. I think the truth is that the country needs to sit down and make a decision before this thing gets out of hand. We have bandit masquerading and kidnapping. Is it last week that I was reading news that they were going house to house in the president's village, the president's backyard, creating mayhem without any response. Go to the southeast, the place is a no-go area now. People are scared to go in there. Even the southwest that people think is safe, it's not safe. Remember, during the lockdown, this time last year, people were battling and fighting for their life. 1 million boys. Where are those boys today? They are still there committing crime. It's just that the media is talking less about them. And then you come up to, so where is safe in the country? They invaded the, what will I call it now? The university, just very close to the seat of power, kidnap people and then go and cut away with people and all those kind of things. So the thing is getting out of hand, and people need to actually call the president, call his bluff, forget about this political thing. The question is about the survival of our country. The question is about the survival of the nation. And you have to call him to book. You have to ask him questions, difficult questions that he needs to ask. That needs to be asked. And he needs to provide answers. He was elected on the back bar, I'll call it, he was elected under the banner of he's coming as a general, he's coming to quell up Boko Haram. Unfortunately, what we are seeing in the country is now worse than Boko Haram. I think, let me end it here.
Thank you, Samuel. Let me ask Omasa. Omasa, a few years ago, I met someone who did his PhD on the Boko Haram war. And the person said to me that, look, the reality is Nigeria is going to have to negotiate a deal with the terrorists, because he says this is a war that the country cannot win. So my question to you is, do you agree with that analysis? Do you think this war is unwinnable and Nigeria has to negotiate some sort of truce with Boko Haram and ISWAP?
Well, to a certain extent, yes. We're going to eventually there's going to actually have to be negotiations and a peace deal. But it can't happen now. You'd have to drive Boko Haram and the unknown gunmen or the bandits or whoever they are, whatever they call themselves, out of the core regions of Nigeria and push them to the periphery. Basically, you have to push them back to Borno State and they have to stay there. But yes, this insurgency can go on for decades and decades and decades if we are not careful. I'm sure you've heard the stories of apparently aid agencies taking like 30, 40, 50-year leases on places in Maiduguri because they're expecting to be there for a while. So if we're not careful, this insurgency and conflict can go on for a very, very long time. But yes, eventually we're going to have to negotiate with Boko Haram to end the conflict in some way or some form. It depends. The problem is whether there'll be pragmatic people in charge of Boko Haram that would agree to such a negotiation. But there's definitely going to be some negotiations with Boko Haram in the future. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Because of the fact that the federal government, it seems unable and in some cases unwilling to deal with the security crisis with all the attention that it needs. So eventually we're going to have to negotiate with them.
Thank you, Amasa. My final question to you, Phoenix, is this war has cost the country billions of dollars and a lot of lives have been lost. We're now we've lost generals, we've lost senior officers. So I've also read academic articles that said the continual depletion of the armed forces is also a national security threat to the government, because if the military is unhappy, there's a real risk of a military coup d'etat. They've also talked about the effects on young people not being in school for over 10 years because of displacements in their communities. So what in your view, do you agree with this analysis, Phoenix?
Michael, I agree. I think I can remember having a number of conversations with people, and maybe even on the podcast, we've talked about this, about combat fatigue. It is, I mean, number one, we have too small an army. I mean, if we look at the number of troops and the size of our armed forces, to have been waging this kind of war for 10 years, it does a lot to the human psyche, because you're having to rotate the same people in and out. It's not as if you have a large force that, you know, you can send in 50,000 troops and then rotate them out so that they don't go anywhere near the battlefront for another maybe 6 months or 12 months, because you have a large enough army that can keep going in and out. We have a lot of people who have been in that battlefront for years. So clearly, I mean, you have an issue of morale, and I agree with that analysis that the state of our army is one to be concerned about, and hopefully it doesn't crystallize into what they are thinking about, a coup d'etat or something like that. But clearly, I mean, like I was saying earlier, I mean, this lands at the feet of the government, or the federal government, and how they prosecuted this, and perhaps there needs to be another way. I mean, Omasan talks about the fact that we may have to negotiate in future, and that's accepting defeat, isn't it? I'm not saying that, I mean, we would not or we should not, but I mean, you can't continue having this battle continue for this long, because clearly the guys on the other side, I mean, they don't care. As far as they're concerned, they are destabilizing the polity, and they can be at it for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. But Nigeria doesn't have that time. We've lost a generation of children who are unable to go to school. We have children who have been born under displacement, who have been born in the Northeast, in Borno, in Maiduguri, and all those places, who don't know what it is to have a peaceful existence. They live in the shadow of gunshots, of kidnappings, of violence. And so what kind of society do we, or what kind of people do we expect them to grow up into? So for me, I mean, it is a major issue. It is a massive problem for us, and one of the key reasons why we can't go forward, especially because you're expanding. The Nigerian state is poor, doesn't have a lot of resources. I mean, that's what, I mean, Samuel was also reminding us of when he was speaking earlier. Then think about how much of that, those meager resources are going into prosecuting this interminable war. So that we're losing on so many fronts just because of this issue. I don't know what it will take to put an end to it. But one thing I know is that, I mean, we have not seen enough of an effort to deal with this wholeheartedly. And I believe very strongly, more than ever before, that this has been politicized, because some people did not want to be seen to be waging all-out war on the North, so that they can retain, especially Buhari, to retain his reputation and all of that, because this should never have lasted this long, in my view. And so many have paid for it. We're losing officers. Let's not even begin to talk about the civilian casualties. I'm told that I read that this has cost over 300,000 lives, millions displaced, a nation that hasn't known peace in a decade. So a part of the country that, I mean, seems to be under different type of government. So for me, I'm hoping that a change, and we will have a change inevitably in maybe 18 months or maybe a little bit longer than that, when we have a new government come into place. I'm hoping that maybe by some stroke of luck, Nigeria finds a different administration that finds a lasting, pragmatic and positive solution to this problem. Because, I mean, we can't afford for this to continue on indefinitely. We can't, even if we count what we've lost so far, this, I mean, but it needs to stop. Someone needs to find a way to put a stop to this. And I'm hoping that the next administration can find something intelligent, sensible, and pragmatic to do to bring this to an end.
Thank you, Phoenix. I quite agree. The lives lost, obviously, we remember them in our prayers, but for the sake of the dead and the young people who are the future of this country, we need to find a solution to this security crisis, because it is depriving our young people of a peaceful and prosperous future. But our time is up. So firstly, I must thank our two guests. Thank you, Samuel and Omasa, for taking time out to be here. Thank you, my co-host, Phoenix, for being here. But for those of you that don't know, I had dinner with Phoenix on Friday, and I'm still recovering. I think he tried to kill me with food and whiskey. So apologies if my voice is a bit rusty. It's Phoenix's fault. And then thank you to our listeners for always giving us helpful feedback. So until same time next week, I say have a fantastic 7 days to all of you.
Thanks, Michael, and thanks, Omasa and Samuel, for joining us. Thank you, listeners, for always.
It was a pleasure.
And have a great week, everyone. As you all know, I mean, we keep talking about the NSAS and the Lekki massacre as a symbol of the quest for a better Nigeria. Thank you all. Bye, everyone.